Hi, it's Laura, and I'm here to talk about how you can target your child's speech and language skills at home. Just because you're not coming into the clinic doesn't mean you can't continue to work on their play, language, and speech sound development. And remember, even when you are coming to the clinic, it's not 45 minutes a week that turns them into a successful communicator. It's what you do at home that makes all the difference. In this video, I'll be talking about how to elicit play and language skills using bubbles. As always, my top 3 tips for turning your child into a communicator are to make it fun, be consistent, and meet them where they're at. So, bubbles. I have not yet met a toddler who doesn't love bubbles. I wish I loved anything as much as children love bubbles. I mean, they're fun, I get it. And most families have these lying around, so there's something quick and easy that you can use to target language with your child. Now, they come with all kinds of attachments and different varieties, and the big bubbles and the little bubbles and the bubble guns and the bubble wands, all kinds of things. But really, all you need are some basic bubbles to work on these things at home. So the first thing you can do with bubbles is play with your child. Bubbles are a great way to work on social interaction and joint attention. When you play with bubbles with your child, you hold the bubbles. This embeds a social interaction piece to the play. If they want these bubbles, they have to come to you because you're in charge of the bubbles. When you take out the wand, hold it close to your mouth so that they get used to looking at their communication partner's face when they're playing or when they're communicating. Make it super engaging. Use big facials and gestures. Be silly with it. Make yourself the most interesting thing in the room so that they're going to want to come play with you. And again, make sure that you are in control of the bubbles. There's a good chance that if you let your toddler get this, they're going to spill it, and they're also going to walk away with it, which defeats the whole purpose of playing with your child when they get away from you. Another pre-linguistic skill you can work on with your child is gestures. So kids who aren't ready to talk often use gestures. And before a child can imitate words, they have to imitate gestures. There are so many gestures that you can do with bubbles. So you could blow some bubbles, and you can pop them, you can clap them, you can try and catch them on your wand, you can eat them. Lots of different things that you can do with your bubbles. You can blow them. Your toddler's probably going to have a hard time blowing bubbles, but that doesn't mean they're not going to want to try and that you shouldn't at least let them have a chance. Also pointing and punching bubbles. This helps get them used to pointing to things that they want. Whatever it is that you want your child to imitate, just show them what you want them to do over and over and over so that they can start learning how to copy your gestures. Another type of early language you can target with bubbles is verbal routines. This is where I really use my favorite one over and over and over. Ready, set, go! And then you blow your bubbles. You want your child to know that every single time you say that routine, number 1, it's going to say the same, and number 2, something happens at the end. In this case, after go, they get bubbles. What's more exciting than that for a 2-year-old? Once they know the routine, they'll start to show some anticipatory responses. They know what's coming. Their little eyes light up, their body gets excited, they're looking right at you, waiting for those bubbles to come. So what you need to do first is model ready, set, go over and over and over for them. But then you start to extend the pause a little bit. Ready, set, go! It might feel uncomfortable for you, but the more comfortable you can get with waiting, the more opportunity you give your child the chance to respond, because they're going to be like, why isn't she saying it? When's she going to say it? Are we going to get the bubbles? They're going to start to wonder. And then eventually it'll click with them. Oh my goodness, if I say go, She'll give me the bubbles. Go, go, go. And they'll fill it in for you. So that is one verbal routine that you can work with bubbles. Now, there's a lot of different responses that I accept for go. If a child is working on making eye contact with somebody and I say ready, set, and then they look at me, I take that. I'll say go and blow the bubbles because they've done what I wanted them to do. They've looked at me. If your child doesn't yet have all their speech sounds and you say ready, set, and they say, oh, that's okay. They've anticipated the routine and they've given you a response. Take it, blow those bubbles. And of course, the sign. If a child is using signs and I say ready, set, and they sign go, I will then blow the bubbles so that they get that response. It's a cause and effect kind of thing. You participate in the routine, you get your bubbles. So the more you can practice that, the better. There's also lots of vocabulary that can be built into bubbles. There's so much more than just bubbles and pop. Okay, so if you have a bubble container that you need to open, you can say open. When you want your child to request that you open the bubbles, wait for them to say open. There's also wand, blow, eat, pop, clap, kick, all kinds of things. I like to do up, down. Should I blow the bubbles up or should I blow the bubbles down? And of course, you always get those times where you bring out the wand and you're like, ready, set, go, and you blow it and there's no bubbles. That's a great time to work on, uh-oh, no bubbles. Or any kind of exclamatory, oh, just some kind of response that you do every single time there's no bubbles, so that your child knows when that happens, this is something that they can say, because it's gonna happen. If your child is working on 2-word phrases, you can of course work that into bubbles. If they have mastered the word bubbles, then you can use that as a carrier phrase. Blow bubbles, bubbles pop, bubbles up, bubbles down. You want to make sure if you're targeting 2-word phrases that one of the words has already been mastered. You don't want to throw 2 brand new words at them. If they're not saying bubble, then you're probably not going to want to target blow bubbles. You're probably just going to want to start with one word, bubbles. But if they're at the 2-word phrase and that's what they're working on, you can work on that with bubbles. Another skill you can specifically target is requesting. Many kids come to me and they're able to label everything in the room, and that's great, but it's not as functional as requesting. If they need something, they need to be able to tell us that they need it. So bubbles are a good way to practice that because they want these bubbles. You have something that they want. And if you can teach them that, hey, you can have these bubbles, all you have to do is say bubbles, then they're going to start saying bubbles because they want them. So for some kids, I accept more. If I show them these bubbles and say, what do you want? And they say more, I'll blow bubbles if that's where they're at. Some kids are saying bubbles. If they say bubbles, I'll give them the bubbles. Some kids are saying more bubbles. I want bubbles. Bubbles, please. All kinds of different requests. Open bubbles. Or my turn. If your child is one of those kids that just has to have this wand, and it's kind of a struggle to get it back, that is a good way to practice my turn, your turn, my turn, uh-oh, my turn. I blow bubbles now. So that you can practice not only the language, but the turn-taking piece of it. The last thing that I want to touch on is giving choices when playing with bubbles. Kids learn by imitating, so the more variations you show them, the more language that they hear. If your child is in a place where they are imitating language and their vocabulary is increasing every week, then model some different variations. I mean, instead of just blow bubbles, you can ask, should I blow bubbles up or should I blow bubbles down? Do you want more bubbles or are we all done with bubbles? There's lots of different things that you can have them request. Should I eat these bubbles or should I kick these bubbles? Should I punch the bubbles or should I clap the bubbles? Should we blow bubbles on the dog or should we blow bubbles at daddy? lots of different ways to play with these bubbles to give them choices and show them exactly what they can tell you to get what they want. And I do have one little trick for you. As I said earlier, when I play with bubbles, I hold the bubbles. I hold the bubbles, and that's that. Now, this can be very frustrating for some children. They want to hold the bubbles. They want to be in charge. And a lot of times they want to take the bubbles and leave me. But that's not going to help them work on their play and language. They need to be close to me to work on those things. So while I hold the bubbles and I like to be in control, I'm also not a Grinch. So what I do is I have 2 identical bubble containers. One of them is full of bubbles, and that's for me. The other one is empty, and that's for them. And that right there, just holding the bubble container, squashes a lot of the tantrums. They're just happy to be holding on to something. But guess what? I'm still in control because I have the real bubbles. If they want bubbles, they have to come back to me. Even if they take their empty bubble container and walk away with it, when they want real bubbles, they're going to have to come back to me and ask. This also gives an opportunity for some more language, because when they realize that there are no bubbles in there, you can say, "Oh no, bubbles gone. Bubbles broken. Where are the bubbles? No more bubbles." So it's kind of giving them what they want, but it's still a way for you to get what you want, which is for them to play, interact, and speak with you. So I hope this video gave you some ideas on how you can use bubbles to target language and play skills in your child. Remember, make it fun, be consistent, and meet them where they're at. I hope you're staying healthy and that I get to see you soon.